Shabbat Shalom. We are nearing the end of our journey. The Israelites are about to cross over the Jordan, and it feels special that we, through COVID, have traveled with them. We will keep wandering, while the scrolls will be turned and we will begin again the story of a lone Aramean couple who will give birth to that Israelite nation. While this is not what this sermon is about, I have felt their journey more acutely, with new details of their story jumping out at me, and that is a silver lining. It's a blessing, and it's one that I'm grateful that we get to share in together. Today we read Parashat Shoftim. Shoftim means judges. It follows on the heels of last week's portion, Re'eh, where we get one of the very few times in the Torah where we are commanded to see. The progression is telling us something essential, one we need to embrace regardless of our interaction with the law. And that is, before we can judge ourselves or others, we must be able and willing to see. Our portion is a long one, and it is filled with law. Notably, we get laws on who can be a judge, issues of warfare, and we get the so-called cities of refuge, where someone was to go if they inadvertently killed someone, and this is where they were able to escape unjust retribution. Our portion is rich with laws to establish justice as the prevailing feature of Israelite society. And the portion opens with a line of emphasis. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. But it is a law of seeming injustice that I want to spend a few moments talking about. And it is another law that deals with death and killing. In our portion, we get the ritual known as the Egla Arufah, which simply means the heifer with the broken neck. If a body is found lying out in the open in a city, and that person's identity is unknown, and the case goes unsolved, this ritual was enacted. Namely, after finding whose jurisdiction the case falls under, the town's elders and priests would take a heifer, would kill it, like the scapegoat on Yom Kippur, and they killed it on behalf of the community, acknowledging the shared guilt, recognizing the blood that is on the collective hands of the community. The ritual after the Torah was abandoned. The Mishnah posits the idea that its abandonment was due to our no longer being scandalized by untimely and preventable deaths. But I think we ought to bring back some form of this ritual with the heifer. How many bodies lie out in the open in front of us? How many cases do we allow, in one form or another, to go unsolved, unresolved, and uncared for? I'm not sure what we can do, but abdicating our responsibility to be citizens to all, cannot be neglected. Our portion does not say tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, but only within the community of Israelites. Justice begins, first, when we see, when we worry not about who gets to be judge and jury, who writes an op-ed and who stands in the street, but when we see. It happens when we see ourselves as responsible for others, and that injustice is injustice. And while pursuing that justice can be done in many different forms and in many different ways, not caring and not seeing is certainly not one among them. Our country, in many respects, is like the Mishnah. We have normalized gun violence and murder, but also poverty, as long as they're not in our circle. The Egla Arufah is about culpability, about holding accountable those who say, my hands are clean. Yeah, it's terrible, but I didn't see anything. The Egla Arufah is not about having an alibi in court. It is about seeing that the grandest of juries look past evidence, look past fingerprints, and seeks the evidence of the heart. In our portion, we get laws dealing with warfare. And this runs almost counter to the mission's acceptance of reality and our contemporary neglect of these rights. War is horrible and it is hellish, but it happens. And thus these laws in the Egla Arufah demonstrate that the Torah is full of ideals, but also fully realistic. We need not worry about being judge and jury, not worry about presiding over the court of public opinion, but worry about how we will pursue justice, what we can do so that no person nor any community are found to be lying lifeless. As we hear the shofar blast every morning leading up to Rosh Hashanah, Rofei Tzedek, I hope we hear in that shofar the call towards justice. Shabbat Shalom.